much do we really know about Dolly Parton? Do you consider yourself mysterious?
Well, people find me mysterious because I just tell everything I know. What's the mystery there? I tell everything I feel that the people need to know, and I'm honest in what I say. I just don't always tell everything I know.
She needs no introduction. We know her music.
Well, I would only be in your way.
Her movies,
Working 9 to 5.
and her glitzy style, which is the main event of her new book, Behind the Seams, My Life in Rhinestones.
It's all about the clothes that I've worn over 6 decades.
I know you say you don't care about fashion. How can that be?
Well, I don't care about following fashion. I've never been one to follow what other people are doing. I see what's going on, but I never could have afforded in those early days. But I just had my own personality, my own thought of who I was and how I wanted to look. But I laugh out loud when people say I'm a fashion icon, because I never intended for that to happen. I just kind of dressed the way I dressed.
You exude confidence in everything that you do. Do you always feel that way?
Well, I'm confident in myself. I often say I'm comfortable in my own skin no matter how far I've stretched it as the years go by. But I think there's a lot to be said about being comfortable with who you are, because I don't know how to be anybody else. I don't want to be anybody else.
Each dress, shoe, and wig tells a story, just like her music.
Do you have a favorite memory or a feeling from some of the clothes that you wore?
Yeah, I do. There's many of them. I have a feeling about all of them that I feel strongest about was when I became a member of the Grand Ole Opry back in 1969. That little outfit meant a lot to me because that was a big occasion. And then, of course, my little coat of many colors.
A coat of many colors, Mama made for me.
Is a song that's just stood by me and just become so many things. It's created a life of many colors for me because that little song is so important.
And the queen of country music is adding a new color to that coat. Rock and roll. Her new album, appropriately named Rockstar, is her first in the genre.
I'm a rock star. I laugh out loud at that too, just like I do at the, being a fashion icon. I'd always loved it, but I'm from the country, and country music was my livelihood. But my husband is a huge rock and roll fan, and I used to think that I would do a rock album someday, and then the time went on, I started getting older, and I thought, that'd be a joke now. And then I thought, well, timing's everything. So I decided I'm going to do that rock and roll album.
There are also 9 original tracks from the prolific songwriter.
Liar, liar, the world's on fire.
Let's talk about World on Fire. That's a political message that I don't always detect from you.
Well, actually, I didn't think of that as political as much as I was thinking of it as trying to save our asses.
Save our
butts. Anyway, that's one of the lines. It was more about just all the things that's going on in the whole wide world. I thought, why are people not thinking about what we're doing to each other and to this world, the only world we've got to live in? So I just felt led to write something, because that's how I do express myself. I'm not political, but I do write. But I do feel it, just like the first line of that says, I'm not one for speaking out much, but that don't mean I don't stay in touch. And I do. I'm in touch, and I worry, and I pray, and I think, what all can I do? So we all need to do things in our own way to try to make a change. We should all love one another.
Change she hopes to continue to bring to the world.
You end the book with, watch out, there's a lot more to come. What's next for Dolly Parton?
Well, I never know what's next. I always say that I wake up with new dreams every day. I'm always dreaming. I'm always doing, and I hope to do that till the day I die, which I hope is a long time from now.
When the Rolling Stones ended their tour last year, Mick Jagger issued a challenge to his bandmates to set a deadline to record an album.
So I said to Keith, let's try and do that. We're going in this, we're going here, and we finish by Valentine's Day. And
It's
Keith,
called Blitzkrieg.
Blitzkrieg, and we're going to finish it.
They did. Hackney Diamonds is the band's first album of original songs in 18 years.
You don't really need a lot to kick off a song, you know.
Yeah. We're lucky because we bounce, me and Keith. If somebody's got a riff,
bounce the ball.
And we weave. You see, lots of people say, what is this weaving? But it's fantastic because it provides a net for Mick to fall into.
We talked to the Stones together and individually.
Do you paint every day?
Well, when I can, yeah, when I'm not playing the guitar.
Ronnie Wood at his home in London.
Is making a record different now than it was 20, 40 years ago?
Not for us, luckily, because you can't lose that element of camaraderie and live music. Something happens which is magic, and we never try to examine it that closely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just let it rock on.
It's an old friend of ours, Electric Lady.
Keith Richards we met at Electric Lady Studios in New York, where the band worked on the album.
Do you still get excited to write a great song?
Oh yeah, even if it turns out to be lousy, the minute you think, oh, I've got something here, or you're playing it in a... Yeah, I mean, even the teasing thread, this could be fantastic. Yeah, that's the joy of it, man.
What's your songwriting process? Do you have one?
I have lots of them.
And Mick Jagger sat down with us in London.
Like Sweet Sounds of Heaven. So I wasn't trying to write a song. I was just playing the piano for fun, and then suddenly you've written Sweet Sounds of Heaven.
Lady Gaga joined Jagger on the vocal for the new song.
But it's a very satisfying thing to do. It's one of my favorite things to do.
What's satisfying about it for you?
Well, because to write a song, you just need your recording device, and you need, your voice. In 10 minutes, you can create something that didn't exist before. And maybe should never exist, but sometimes they're worth it,
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Jagger and Richards are one of the most successful songwriting teams of all time. The Stones have sold more than 250 million records. But back in 1962, they started as a blues band that played only covers.
I'd never considered myself to be a songwriter until somebody yelled, we need a song. And somebody's got to come up with it. And so Mick and I sort of went in the kitchen and started and learned how to write songs, and, for the Rolling Stones.
Don't get angry with me.
In the video for their new song, Angry, the vintage Stones from every era come to life again through animation and artificial intelligence.
I love the new video.
What I loved about it is that we didn't have to do anything.
It looks like we did.
How do you feel about AI? I'm curious.
When we're all gone, there'll still be AI, so it won't be to get rid of us.
Yeah. You could be playing forever at that rate.
You could be.
Yeah. You could be asking questions forever.
No. Another supergroup, ABBA, though no longer together, is still performing in hologram concerts.
You haven't thought about having yourself, sort of...
We definitely have thought about it, and we've been asked.
Cremated or embalmed.
It's going to happen, I'm sure.
You will do it.
Yeah, definitely.
The streets I used to walk on.
But Jagger, Richards, and Wood don't seem to be contemplating their own mortality.
All we need is a croak here. Right?
They accept occasionally. Nor are they considering their legacy.
Have you thought about that?
Oh, no, I know. Other people can think about that. I'm sure there'd be several different versions.
After 6 decades, they're talking about touring again next year. The band, Keith Richards says, is bigger than all of them.
Because in a way, it's the Rolling Stones that keep pulling Mick and me and Ronnie and back together. There's something about that I really admire about the whole bunch, you know.
That you've made it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a rough trip here and there.
John Legend joins us to discuss so many things, but let's start with the COVID, what you're doing.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? I'm just glad to be serenaded by you this morning.
Yes, you are welcome. I don't even charge you. But you know, so many people are still hesitant, they're still afraid, or they say, look, I've had all the COVID shots I'm gonna have, I'm done. I'm done and done. I'm scheduled to get mine next week, my updated one. Why is this so important to you? What's your message?
Well, I think it's great for my family. I believe in making sure everyone in my family is protected. And, you know, the thing about the virus is it changes, it mutates. And so it's good to have vaccines that are updated. And I think what's going to happen in the future is we're going to have updates every year, just like we get a flu shot every year and things of that nature. So I think if you care about keeping your family healthy and keeping your family protected, I think getting the vaccine update is a great way to help do that.
Yeah, and now you sit here, John Legend, a father of 4.
Yes, a father of 4, just like my dad.
Oh, your dad had 4 kids?
Yes.
Okay. How does that sit with you?
I'm so enjoying it, you know, our kids.
It doesn't seem like a lot of children.
It's a lot, but it's a lot more joy and more love, too. It's just a lot of energy in the house, and we're enjoying it.
Are you at that stage now in your life where you see your father more in the mirror when you look in the mirror?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I look like my dad's side of the family, too, and I have a lot of his demeanor, and I catch myself saying things that he would say. I'm definitely my dad's son.
So what's the biggest adjustment as the family grows?
Well,
your biggest adjustment?
I think the biggest adjustment for the kids, the older kids, was getting used to having babies around because I think they were used to being the babies. And so they had to get used to that. And I think as parents, we had to navigate that with them. And I think that was probably the biggest challenge.
But you guys have been on such a journey. We all mourned with you when Chrissy had the miscarriage and you lost baby Jack. And then you tried to have another one.
Yes.
And then Chrissy got pregnant. And then you also did a surrogacy, too.
Yeah.
You didn't plan it that way.
Well, we didn't know if it was going to work with Chrissy again because of the experience we had with Jack. And so we were basically kind of trying to go down 2 tracks and see if at least one of them worked. And so we had a surrogate and we had Chrissy. And we actually were going to hopefully have them around the same time. But actually, the IVF procedure didn't work the first time with the surrogate. So the surrogate ended up being 5 months later than Chrissy. So we have this kind of odd circumstance of a kid that was born in January and a kid that was born in June. But it's just more love and more energy in the house.
Yeah. Did you have a good experience with surrogacy? I know so many people
We
were
did.
trying and looking.
We did. We had
complicated.
We had a wonderful surrogate. She's become part of the family. We kind of welcomed her into the family. And some parents don't want to do that with their surrogates, but we felt like we wanted to welcome this person into our family because they were doing something so gracious and loving for us, and we wanted to show them a lot of love too.
You know, you have been through so much as you have grown your family, and unfortunately, there's other people that might identify with your story.
Sure.
What advice would you give people that might be dealing with some of the similar things that you and your family went through?
You know, we found a lot of healing through sharing it, honestly, and talking about it, because you find out that there are a lot more people.
Alone.
Yeah, there are a lot more people going through it than you would think, and a lot of people have felt some shame around it, and I think us kind of demystifying it and talking about it has helped people feel less shame and feel like, they're not the only ones going through this. Because it's very common. It's more common than you think. And us talking about it has exposed us to a lot more stories of people going through it.
Yeah, it's important. Another thing people are going through, this institution called marriage.
Yes.
10 years for you and Chrissy.
10 years. We just celebrated our anniversary.
You renewed. You went back to Italy where you were married.
Yeah, so we didn't actually renew our vows. We didn't actually have a vow renewal ceremony, but we just had
the media was wrong?
Well, we had an anniversary celebration and we gave each other speeches. So
I like that.
In place of a vow renewal ceremony, we just got up and spoke to each other authentically and you know.
It's like intimate.
And emotionally, yeah, it was beautiful. We had our family there and some friends, and we went back to where we got married at Lake Como.
I'm so curious, because I'm sure you gave a speech at your wedding 10 years ago.
Sure.
So 10 years later, renew, not renew, you give another speech. How was it different, those 10 years?
Oh, well, one, the difference of having kids is really major, because Chrissy started crying when we pulled up to the wedding, and the kids had just gotten there before us in a separate vehicle, and them being there to greet us, it was very different than us not having kids.
Yeah.
And so that feeling of celebrating it with our kids, able to see it there and celebrate our love with us and see the product of our love right there in front of us, it was pretty powerful. And I think just years of experience together, you go through all the ups and downs together, all the tragedy, the triumph, all the joy, everything we've been through together. It makes the anniversary, I think, even more beautiful and more meaningful than the wedding itself. And I sang a song from my last album, a song called I Don't Love You Like I Used To. Yes. And that song is about the idea that you grow together, and whatever love you felt for someone at the beginning, it evolves and it's tested and it's fortified through all those tests. And I really believe that's what's happened to us. And we're stronger and more in love than ever, but it's a different kind of love than it is when you first meet and when you first get together.
That's a beautiful answer. Is that not a beautiful answer?
That's what he does, because he's John Legend. We're so cheering you on. We love you and Chrissy together. The other couple people are talking about are Will and Jada. Is there anything you want to share with the class?
I have nothing to share.
You want us to go
I believe they've shared all that needs to be shared, and then some.
Okay.
I mean, after all, they're just ordinary people.
We all are.
We appreciate it. You're right about that.
Now Watts is adding author to his resume. His new memoir is called Great Falls, Montana. Here's the second line. Fast times, post-punk weirdos, and a tale of coming home again. Reggie Watts, we welcome you to CBS Mornings. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now, in your book, you say, your words, I'm a connoisseur of weed, Robitussin, and old James Bond movies.
Yes.
Sounds like a good night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very strange, but very good nights. Yes.
Now, you also say this about yourself. You knew at an early age that you were different from all the other kids. Number one, you're in Montana. You're multilingual, you're biracial, you knew that you were strange. And instead of shying away from that, you said, I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to make kids like me. What did you do?
Yeah, well, I basically, I think when I was born, all I wanted to do is have a good time. And I would do that at any cost, like I'd pursue it at any cost. But I think when I was really young and my parents would have their friends over, for adult nights, I loved hanging out with the adults. That's usually what happens with only child. And so I just became kind of an entertainer at those parties.
Did you feel ostracized as a kid, though? Because it's not like you fit in right away. It didn't seem so in the book.
No, I can't. I'm sure I did, but I don't readily remember it. I remember just assimilating however I could as quickly as I could.
Yeah.
That was always
It's a survival tactic.
Exactly. Yeah. And it felt nice. I mean, it just I don't know. I've just always been, that's always how I enter into situations.
Yeah, most people as adults, we have this comfort with ourselves, or at least we act as if we do. But I almost guarantee it that every person has felt out of the box at some point. What would be your advice to people that are sitting at home and they're just like, I'm so unique, I'm different, but I don't like being myself in public?
And it's tough because there's a lot of pressure. I mean, it's a real thing because people want people to fit in. I think it's a natural thing. I don't think it's necessarily always like I want to reduce you. It's just more like I want to know what you are so I can move on with my day. However, I think if you are unique, man, embrace it. You gotta, whatever makes you happy when you're at home, no matter how nerdy it is. Nowadays, actually, we're lucky because the internet shows us different ways of being.
It's true.
So nerdiness is celebrated and weirdness is celebrated. So in some ways, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But you tell a very poignant story. Your dad is black, your mom is white, she's French, she has this French accent. You're a little kid, one of the kids calls you the N-word, the father actually. And your mom goes rushing over there and she takes him on. She's a little bitty thing. But what impact did that have on you as a little kid?
I mean, it sucked. I mean,
it does
the feeling that you feel even when you're a little kid and I didn't fully understand what that word meant necessarily, but I knew you can feel the energy behind it.
Yeah.
And of course, there was fear. I mean, the KKK was always a constant fear to me.
That changed the way you looked at your mom?
Well, my mom was like, yeah, well, she was a protector, you know, and I kind of like had that spoiled, privileged viewpoint of like, come on, Mom, don't embarrass me. And when in actuality, she was protecting me.
Quite heroic.
Yes, and I'm eternally grateful for that.
So you say you were born and you basically just wanted to have a good time, but you couldn't accomplish all you have and get to the place where you are right now with the book and all the work you're doing without working very hard. So where did you get that work ethic?
I definitely got that from my parents. My mom worked so hard. You know, she was a contract cleaner, house cleaner for the base, the Air Force Base. And so she had to, you know, do white glove inspection level cleaning.
Wow.
Fully empty houses, like fully clean, ready for the next family to move in. And so but she became the top cleaner. She was always in demand. She worked so much, she'd work late at night. She worked all the time. She was one of the hardest workers. So I considered myself lazy compared to her.
So from Montana to James Corden, how did you and James Corden get together?
Yeah, I just had completed filming half of a season of a show I was on called Comedy Bang Bang, which stars me as a fake band leader on a fake talk show.
Yes.
Then 2 weeks, I was supposed to go back to New York where I was living because this other show was shooting in LA. Supposed to go back. Then my manager says, hey, this guy wants to talk to you before you leave. He's got a talk show. And I was like, what? And so I met with him. He's like, yeah, I got the talk show, CBS, whatever. So, and I'm like, you're asking me to be a real band leader with an actual...
With a real show.
An actual show. It's like, what is the likelihood of that? Within 2 weeks of me leaving, this is insane. And I thought about it long and hard. And then a bunch of friends were like, just go for it, you know, see what happens.
And you had a very good run. I'm sitting here looking at your shirt. I'm trying to figure out, sex positive, what does that mean?
It's like sex. All right.
Sex, it's a good thing?
Yeah, sex. It's not bad. It's right. No, it's just like, I think it's like people who are like, you know, who like sex in a healthy way sometimes get shamed for it and get called slurs for it and things like that. And so it's kind of like part of, it's like just like a positive message to like empower people to that sensuality is a good, healthy thing. And
I love that message.
And it doesn't mean anything.
I love that message, too.
Yeah,
You got the whole look.
I second that.
We second that emotion. Reggie Watts, continued success to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ziwe, good morning. How you doing?
Hello, how are you doing? I'm great.
Thank you for joining us. Black Friend Essays is a collection of deeply personal essays. But you had mentioned before that you don't really like being interviewed.
No.
Yet this is very personal.
Yes.
So why did you decide to write this book?
I love to torture myself, and I thought, what better way than to write 200 pages on pop culture and my most intimate secrets?
And do you feel it was, I mean, people often say that these sort of essays are cathartic. Did you find any release?
Yes, I think it allowed me to just put it on the page and then walk away and get asked about it for the next couple months.
You get into some tough stuff here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, repeated experiences of racism. One essay that is both funny and sad at the same time is you are on the Jumbotron, I think at the Barclays Center, WNBA game, and it's Ziwe, everybody, except it's not, right? Tell me what happened.
I thought it was hilarious because I was wearing overalls that did say my name on it, and the other woman, Sam J, was screaming, "I'm not Ziwe, I'm not Ziwe, I'm not Ziwe," as they put her on the Jumbotron as me. So I think it's pretty hilarious. Honestly, it's kind of iconic.
You were actually there to make a point about feminism and
I was there
on women.
I was there to support women, and I was repaid for that.
By being mistaken for another woman.
Yes, yes. And, you know, we don't always win, but we learn.
One of the essays, just because you're racist doesn't mean you are a bad person. That one kind of stood out to me. And you went on to talk about how, you know, people are products of their time. But I love the way you ended it, though. You said, so if someone calls you racist, don't be so hard on yourself. You're not a bad person. You're just someone whose entire existence propagates on the oppression of billions of people. And while who you are is not your fault, it is very much your responsibility. So there's humor, there's introspectiveness, it makes you think. When did you realize that I can make someone laugh, but I can also make them think about very, very important issues?
All my life, I've been trying to direct people with my humor. I don't know if it's working, but it's certainly
working.
great on page. I identify as an accountability coach. And so if I can hold anyone accountable, hey, God bless.
Let's hold you accountable for your feet then for a moment here.
Oh, yes.
Shall we? Shall we get into it? There's an essay here about your Wiki Feet rating. Wiki Feet is a website that rates celebrities' feet.
Yes.
Nate, by the way, is a 5.5 on a 5-point scale.
I got pretty feet, Tony.
Just
That's
to
a
let you
lot.
know, you unfortunately, as you reveal in the book, are merely okay feet. That's the rating as of 2019. Have things improved? What was it like learning that?
Thank you for asking. I'm actually here to promote my feet score. I was excerpted in The New Yorker, which helped me go from okay feet to beautiful feet.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
I won't stop until I'm the best feet on earth.
Until you beat Nate's score.
Yeah, I mean, 5.3, I mean, compared to
Yeah.
your score is...
Yeah, it's better. Yeah, I mean, I'm a 4.8 currently.
It's not bad. I mean, it's not 5.3.
It's not. I have to. Gail's not here to defend herself, but I looked up her rating here, and she's currently okay feet.
We call that hammer time.
Oh man!
All right, I'm going to take over the conversation. Leave poor Gail out of this. So, Ziwe, for you, you know, you're a Nigerian American. Your parents have played obviously a huge role in your life, but they haven't actually read your book or watched your show. Is that still the case?
Yes, my father loved my interview with Bob the drag queen, which I thought was really interesting and fun. Yeah, so my father has. My mother doesn't really engage with it, but maybe this will be the book.
Why is that?
Because she is a conservative American. Yeah.
Well, can I ask you?
And I'm bad to the bone.
You're bad to the bone. Your mom might be a conservative American, but kind of all jokes aside, how does that make you feel? You know, the woman that you kind of look up to in so many ways doesn't really pay attention deeply to what you do and put your passion behind.
Who am I to judge what people prioritize in what they consume? I think if anything, I see the other side.
Really?
So, yeah.
And what is
am I
that
going to be
other
like, hey, read my book and hold her eyes open? That would be insane.
I would say that to my mom and my dad because I love them so much and I want their opinion.
Oh.
And that might be kind of rooted in wanting their validation, but I think we all kind of want that from our parents.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm going to call them right after this, and I'm going to ask for their opinion.
Do it on camera.
No, but I love how involved you are. She's like, I don't need that. This is my reality. I'm going to do what makes my contribution in the world. I love what you do just to make conversations about race easy, accessible, lower the temperature a little bit, because I think the problem is we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
Where do you think the funny comes from? I mean, in your family tree, do you have some?
Nigerians are the funniest people on earth. Yeah. That's just true.
Okay.
Ziwe, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming in.
We're very excited to have Aida with us now. Aida, thank you very much for being here. So Gayle used the generous term "tooken away," right? But you say kidnapped.
Yeah, I think it's important to give it the proper name. It's when you take someone against their will from illegally. I mean, I was taken out of the country, away from my father, and I didn't see him again until 2021.
Wow. And so
I'm a grown-up.
You talk about your personal life from the stage as a comedian, when, as you put it, there's the burden of the punchline.
Yes.
Here is a book, very different format. What was it like going from the stage to the page?
You know, it's something I've been doing since I was little. I've been journaling. I learned to write it out. That's how I dealt with my pain as a kid. And I wanted just to tell my story. I'm not a jester. You know, nobody walks up to a dentist and opens their mouth and say, hey, can you check to see if I have cavities?
If you have tooth pain,
But with comedians, they expect us to be on all the time. I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to tell my story without having to feel like I had to...
Perform.
Yeah, perform and also trivialize it. They do that to a lot of us with our pain. It's like, make me laugh about it. It's, no, it's
and
real.
it's not funny. I mean, even the title Legitimate Kid, because here you are, I think you're in 3rd grade, somebody calls you a bastard.
Yeah.
You don't know what that means, but you know it isn't good.
Right.
And so you spent your whole life, or a large part of your life, trying to say to your mom, why don't I have my dad's last name? And you were very envious of other kids that had their dad's last name because you felt that was a hole for you. Why?
Yeah, you know what? In our community, I grew up poor. I grew up in the hood, as they say, and we played the dozens, and that was something that was weaponized against other people. We would find one thing that would say, at least I'm not you. And so sometimes that was it. Your daddy didn't sign your birth certificate.
Yes.
That was a big blow to us back then. And we were all poor, living in the same neighborhood.
Right.
But I have my father's last name, so at least I'm better than you.
Wow.
And it was just a reminder of, you know, the pain. Like, my dad wasn't there. I didn't need to be reminded.
But because your mom kidnapped you, as you say, from your dad, and then later on, your grandmother, your mother's mother, kidnapped you again from her because she didn't think she was a great mom to you.
Yeah, she thought that I was in an environment that was unhealthy. My mom was in a relationship with someone who was on the run for murder.
For murder, yeah.
And
there's that.
Yes, and my grandmother made an executive decision, and she did a whole stakeout with my uncle. They did surveillance, and they came and got me.
So the comedy, did that come out of those moments as a kid where you're being bullied, you're being made fun of because of the lack of the father's last name? Is that the moment of creation, really?
Yeah, you know, when you are a little kid that's exposed to stuff you're not supposed to be exposed to at a young age. I was exposed to Richard Pryor, who is my comedy hero, but I was watching him process his pain through jokes and humor.
Yeah.
And I found an outlet, you know. I became good at the dozens, and I started snapping back.
You write about leaving a difficult marriage, having 2 young kids, moving to LA to chase this dream.
Yes.
What went behind that decision? And also, what advice do you have to people that are hesitating? Because not everybody is willing to take that leap.
Well, you know, the universe agrees with a made-up mind. That's how I live my life.
Preach.
And so, you know,
like that.
I made a decision, and that was me taking agency over my life when I left my ex, who I don't want to demonize either. Like, I'm free now, but it took me a while to get there. I had 2 young kids. Kids are observational learners. I always wanted to pursue this dream of the arts. It's always what I wanted to do. And so I made a decision. I had my vision board, and then I had my budget. Because you got to do my budget board. And then I sat down and I was like, these are the steps, and this is how we go. And I have 2 successful children as a result of it, because they watched me.
And a successful career.
They know their name and they know where they came from.
Yeah.
As a comedian and author.
Yeah.
Yes.
The universe agrees with a made-up mind.
Ooh, that was
That is
good.
well said.
That's very good.
Aida Rodriguez, thank you very much.
Viet Thanh Nguyen, thank you so much for joining us. First here on CBS Mornings. It really is an honor. I followed your work for many, many years, and it's just great to be able to chat with you about
Glad.
this.
It's a thrill to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's talk about this book. You say the memoir's title comes from a self who thinks he knows himself, but not really.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, I grew up with a sense of having a duality, of having 2 faces, because I was raised as a Vietnamese refugee in the United States, in a very Vietnamese household, so I felt very Vietnamese. But I was also an American, growing up on American pop culture. So when I was in my parents' house, I felt like an American spying on these Vietnamese people. And then when I was outside, I felt like a Vietnamese spying on Americans. A sense of duality stayed with me for a very long time. But I think there was also a sense of deceiving myself, believing that I was normal, that I was well-adjusted after all the refugee experiences my family had gone through. But I think what I discovered in writing the memoir was, in fact, my memory had deliberately deceived me about so many traumatic things that had happened to my family.
Yeah, because you say that growing up you weren't really a big fan of memoirs and biographies, right? And you didn't think that there was anything really that interesting about your life. You thought you were well-adjusted, and it was your then girlfriend, now wife, who said, oh, by the way, you are not well-adjusted.
She was not the only one, by the way.
Okay.
When my first writing teacher, Maxine Hong Kingston, I was the worst student in her class, fell asleep every day in her class. She said, she gave me a B+, which is an Asian F.
Yeah, right. It's like you failed.
In her letter to me at the end, she said, you need to seek counseling. And of course, I didn't seek counseling. I became a writer. And that was my way of trying to cope with the damages I think that had been done. The fact that everything that had happened to my family, watching my parents suffer in their grocery store, acknowledging that we had left an adopted sister, their adopted daughter behind, all those things caused me to shut down emotionally and try to look forward to assimilate into American society and pretend that the past hadn't happened and hadn't had an effect on me.
When you say that your writing was heavily influenced by both poetry and Twitter, but I'm intrigued by what you just said. You are an American, but yet you think that you feel and act and are authentically American, but you're not. Break that down.
I mean, I think most people want to be authentically something. They want to have a complete sense of identity. And like I said, my identity is very much about duality, of feeling split, of feeling like I am an American, but I have connections to Vietnam. And then when I go to Vietnam, I feel very American. And that sense of duality is uncomfortable, but it's also great for being a writer. And it's also great for being a human being because it gives me a sense of empathy, this recognition that I should be trying to see every issue from at least two sides and trying to understand people's points of view.
So how do you draw your art, your creative juices? How do they get flowing from Twitter, which a lot of people believe is, I won't say what people think, but you know what people say about how bad things get on social media.
Well, I did a 10-year experiment with Twitter, and I was moderately successful, had like 50 or 60,000 followers, and it taught me how to write very short, very quick, very punchy, and do hot takes. Hot takes are, sometimes fun and sometimes disastrous, but, the form can be very powerful, but as you say, it gets overwhelmed by terrible human emotions. I think I learned what I could from the form, and I took it and I put it into this book, which is, I think pretty easy to read, partly because of that influence from Twitter.
It's a fascinating book, A Man of Two Faces.
This book is about legacy. It's about love. It's about life.
The life and legacy that Nicole Avant writes about in her new memoir begins with her parents, Clarence and Jacqueline.
How do you describe your parents together? Because from the outside looking in, they appeared to be so different.
Yes.
Clarence was...
Oh, he's Archie Bunker.
Okay.
And Jackie is Cleopatra. And they got together and made magic.
They met in the early 1960s while Jacqueline was modeling in the Ebony Fashion Fair.
He'd always have a car pick me up. And I thought, who is this guy?
Clarence Avant was nicknamed the Black Godfather because of his influence in American culture, from music to politics and beyond.
I'd like for you to welcome him warmly, Soul Train Gang, Mr. Clarence Avant.
What was your childhood like? Who would come to your house?
It could be Andrew Young one day, and it could be Harry Belafonte.
Well, Quincy Jones is your godfather. Let's start with that.
Yeah, let's start with
Yes.
Quincy. I mean, there were times where I came home from college unannounced, and I'd walk in, I'm like, is that Whitney Houston? Yes. Oh, yes, she just came over. She's talking to your father, and L.A. Reid's here, and I think they're going to do okay. Muhammad Ali was there quite a bit, and Sydney, Portier. But everybody had the one common theme of, we're pushing society forward in the right way.
And Jacqueline, she was always there, right beside him, focused on philanthropy and supporting the arts. The couple raised 2 children and had been married more than 50 years when their world suddenly changed in December 2021.
Philanthropist Jacqueline Avant was shot and killed today during a Beverly Hills home invasion.
Nicole revealed that her father was by her mother's side before the ambulance arrived.
He saw her laying there.
He did?
He
I
did.
didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And he said she was breathing very heavy. He goes, but she was breathing. He sat with her. He sat behind her. He said, I was rubbing her hair.
So he got to have a moment with her.
Yeah.
As soon as Nicole got a call that her mother had been shot, she raced to the hospital.
Where was Clarence at this point?
So he was in the hospital. He was in the waiting room.
So when you got there, he was there?
He was there.
Yeah.
And
did he even know what happened?
No, he was very quiet. His head was down. I thought, oh God. I said, Daddy, are you okay? And he said, Jackie's in surgery. Jackie's in surgery. And then he held my hand and goes, she'll be okay.
But Jacqueline did not make it. Nicole's brother Alex was at the hospital that night too.
And I remember Alex screaming, and my father was sitting here and he fell onto me. And Ted said I just sat up straight, completely, like just shot up like an arrow. And then I started delegating. I really felt that I was Jackie in that moment of, you go here, Ted, get in the car with my dad. Alex's girlfriend, take him home. And I said, Dad, you're coming home with me.
That night, yeah. And he came home with you that night.
And he never left, no.
The book's title, Think You'll Be Happy, was inspired by the final text Nicole received from her mom. At the time, it was about a sweet potato pie that Jacqueline wanted her to try. But since then, it's taken on a new meaning.
Now, Think You'll Be Happy is my mantra from my mom. Her last words, I believe, because I don't believe in coincidences, and out of all the things that she can say to me before somebody broke into her house, are the words, okay, think you'll be happy. Because my mom was big on your words and your thoughts do create your life.
Yeah, they
We
have
all
great
know
power.
that.
Yeah.
They have great power. They help shape your life.
And then at the end of the day, people always ask people in this situation, have you forgiven? And where do you land on that?
For me, I forgive, but for me. I cannot carry the anger and the resentment and the fury, because it's just a dead weight in my heart. Yeah. And I have to protect my soul. So forgiveness is really always for the person that's forgiving, not condoning the behavior of another person, not trying to go and reconcile with the other person necessarily. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
When I was reading your book, I have to say, I don't know if I got embarrassed, the things that people should not say in times, because honestly, Nicole, I think I've said every one of those things. What are the things that people said to you that were not helpful, that I confess we all have done, and the things people can say that would be helpful?
Well, I think, the first thing is, please tell me what to do. Please tell me what to do. I can't take another thing on. I can't think of what you should do. And I look back at many texts in the last few years where my friends have lost parents, or friends are grieving something. And I either made it about myself or...
How do we make it about ourselves?
When this happened to me,
yes.
I've done that plenty of times. I've learned it's the more simple, the better. And I Love You is a healing balm.
I look too, when you started this book, your father was alive. I look at the last 2 years of your life, Nicole. You've lost both your parents in the last 2 years. How are you dealing with his loss as well? But I think what a gift you had that you could spend the last year of his life with him in the way that you did it.
And he helped me finish this book.
How so?
Because he knew I was writing. And then after my mom passed, he would see me he said, what are you doing today? I'm like, I have this call, that call. What about that book? I go, I'm gonna finish it later. He's like, I want you to write about Jackie.
He did.
Yeah. And he said, and I love the way he said Jackie. And he said, you have an obligation to tell our story, to tell a story.
Today, Jacqueline's story includes the Jacqueline Avant Children and Family Center, named in her honor earlier this year. The center provides physical and mental health care to children and families in South Central Los Angeles, a cause very close to her heart. And you hope people at the end of the day will get what out of this book? Because grief is going to happen to all of us at some point.
I hope that people really take away from this book that it's really about life and living life to the fullest. My dad would say, you come with a number and you end with a number. What are you doing with your dash? It doesn't matter if your dash is 20 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. What are you doing with that dash?
This morning is an exclusive look at Britney Spears' new memoir. It's called The Woman in Me. People Magazine editor-in-chief, that's Wendy Noggle, is here with a preview that you'll see only on CBS Mornings, and we love when we can say that. I'm going to say it again. Only on CBS Mornings.
That's right.
For 13 years, thank you, Nate, the former teen superstar lived under a legal conservatorship controlled by her dad. Spears is now telling her story after a judge agreed to end that conservatorship in 2021. She also posed for her first magazine cover in 5 years and answered questions by email about writing her memoir and her life today. People Magazine and CBS Mornings will exclusively reveal several excerpts from the book in the coming days. We're starting today. The Woman in Me is published by Simon & Schuster, which, as you probably know by now, is a part of CBS, Paramount Global. And we're also happy to say that Wendy Noggle from People Magazine, I'm a subscriber, Wendy, is here in the studio. So let's talk about the cover shoot, if we could, for just a second, because we've all seen Britney dancing around in her house, and people are very concerned looking at her dancing. What can you tell us that your team said about that cover shoot that day? What was she like? How did it go?
Yeah, it was a closed set in Tahiti, a very remote beach. And, I think what we saw as we poured over the images and the video that came out is she was tentative at first, which struck me. I thought, here's a woman with...
tentative?
She was tentative, 42 million followers and on Instagram, and she's performed around the globe. And yet, she was a little tentative, but then you really saw her make some decisions about what she did and didn't want. I think one of my favorite moments was, she was on a horse and she started riding off and she kind of went out of the frame of the camera and you saw this joy and happiness in her that I think she's keeping private a little bit. I think she was riding off, it's almost too metaphorical in a way, but...
Almost like a sense of freedom.
Exactly.
Yeah, when we're looking at the videos, a lot of people are very concerned about her. Is she okay? Is she in her right mind? Who's helping her? Who's taking care of her? Did you and your team get the sense that she is all right?
Yes, I mean, one of the things she detailed in the interview is she admits that this has been a challenging time for her. I think she writes very honestly and painfully in the book that the conservatorship was soul-crushing for her. And she describes this process of she would try to be an adult, but they wouldn't allow her to be adult. So she would regress into being a child. And then she would try again, but she wasn't allowed to make adult decisions. And she became this child robot, was the way she described it. And I think when you think about that, as we all become adults and you're allowed to make mistakes and have successes, and becoming an adult is a process.
Yeah.
And she was really kind of denied that process of becoming a woman.
One of the excerpts from the book was about that time during the conservatorship and how much she worked. What is the sense that you received from her about that time in her life and how exhausted she truly was?
She worked exceptionally hard. There's one line that really stuck with me from the hearing itself where she said she tried so hard to be so pretty and so perfect. And for years, since she was 15, she had a work ethic that I think is really unparalleled in a lot of ways.
And nobody can live up to that.
No one can live up to that, and I think she really writes about in the conservatorship, she was supporting so many people financially. There's so many cases of men who have had gambling problems, addiction problems, but they were never put under this kind of constraint. And so really, she felt like it was not fair of her family to do this to her.
Wendy, how does Britney handle the question of why write the memoir? And then also, what do you think she wants readers to take away from it?
So back in the hearing, she had said one of her wishes was not only to have her life back, but was to be able to tell her story to the world. And so this is what she's doing. She started writing about 1.5 years ago. I think we all know a memoir like this is a really kind of exhaustive, emotional process and probably cathartic for her. And I think this is her attempt to reclaim her own life and her own narrative. But she also really hopes, one of her goals that she told us at People was she wants people to speak up, to not be afraid. She hopes if any one person can find some guidance and in their own trials, this will really be worth it for her.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's a fascinating.
Do you have a copy? Yeah. No, honestly, I can't wait to read it.
It's a fascinating read, and I think incredibly eye-opening.
I'm
and
excited for her, and I hope it helps her in
Yes.
her healing journey. I really
Definitely.
do. A lot of people still always pulling for Britney Spears.
Absolutely.
Always. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.